Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Linda Waters, Deputy Director and for Administration and Programs and the National Outreach Director. We're excited that you are joining us today for the Access to Success Listening Lab, commonly known as A2S. The topic today will be focused on building partnerships with the National Institute of Health. This will be our fourth and final A2S Small Business Listening Lab for FY21, leading up to the Small Business National Virtual Conference, which we held on June 29th and 30th. You will be hearing more about the conference during the Listening Lab today. As we embark on a new year and new administration, the United States Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, is reaffirming its commitment to support small businesses and create real access to resources and procurement opportunities. Now that we have grown our virtual community, we are now engaged in the process of fine-tuning and expanding the various components to address greater accessibility in response to small business concerns and needs. We are excited to support concerns and needs. We're excited to support the growth, longevity, and sustainability of small businesses around the country through the shared commitment to the A2S virtual community, since we all have a vested interest in the success of our small businesses, two of which are supporting our events today. Now I would like to introduce David Dasher, United States Department of Health and Human Services, Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Office of Acquisition, as well as the Senior Procurement Executive for the Assistant Secretary for Financial Resources. Welcome, David.
Thank you very much, Linda. I appreciate this opportunity to speak to this very important effort here and the small businesses here across the United States. And I want to thank Linda and her team as the OSDBU office for setting this up. I want to thank the opportunity being given and afforded to me by Diane Frazier from NIH, the head of the contracting activity. And I'm looking forward to hearing the next hour and a half of the good information, the good news stories, and also just ways we can assist, collaborate together as a unit, if you will, to help small businesses out in this very difficult and challenging times where we need small businesses really to step up to the plate. So thank you very much. As I said, it's a great pleasure to speak with you all today and the opportunities to partner with you in enhancing the health and well-being of the American public. The people of HHS work very hard every single day to foster sustainable advances in the sciences that serve as a foundation for the modern medicine, public health, and social services that serve all Americans. And I'll go even further than that, all people across this globe. I mean, we saw that very much so with the coronavirus. We, along with other nations, led in the charge of the response to the coronavirus. Big businesses, small business, just across the board. And now we've got the children at the border that we're also taking care of here at HHS, right? And that's also a combined effort and also an international effort. So more in this hemisphere, but still a very important endeavor across the board here. So prior to me jumping into the discussion today, we have a short video that I would like to highlight some of the key facts about HHS, the work that we do, and what we do to create opportunities for small business.
The Department of Health and Human Services has 11 operating divisions and 14 staff divisions that administers a wide variety of health and human services and conducts life-saving research for the nation. In fiscal year 2020, HHS oversaw the obligation of more than $2.2 trillion in grants, contracts, and other services. This represents a huge opportunity for America's small businesses. Housed within the HHS Assistant Secretary for Financial Resources, the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, or OSDBU for short, is dedicated to advocating for small businesses. We encourage the HHS workforce to maximize small business participation in HHS procurements and support small businesses by facilitating relationships and providing key resources. We host outreach events and provide resources so small business leaders can know the mission of each division within HHS, Identify what offices and programs to target. Understand department priorities and new initiatives. Search for opportunities. Create a profile in SBCX searchable by the HHS acquisition workforce. Learn how agencies buy and understand how to put their best foot forward when engaging with the HHS. Our team of small business specialists can help small businesses facilitate relationships with contracting officials, assist when small businesses face roadblocks, help with late payment assistance, and help small businesses get the information they need. For more information, please visit the OSBU Customer Care Center at sbmail@hhs.gov.
Great, thank you very much. So I hope you had some takeaways there, some great takeaways from the snapshot of who we are and what we do, if it's not really already evident. But today my agenda will include a discussion on the HHS spend, which is very important to everybody on the phone, as well as to American taxpayers. In what areas we are spending the dollars obligated on the contracts for small businesses. I'll also talk a little about a few of the trends that we're seeing of how our portfolio grows each year in the obligations to small businesses. Now our subcontracting is also growing each year. So next I'll talk to you about the connecting and engaging with us and becoming a part of our outreach events and where you can locate that information. So as you see on this slide, in FY20, HHS spent $40 billion on contracts. Of that $40 billion, $9 billion was awarded to small businesses. To give you a little bit of context there, in a non-COVID year, we spent about $27 billion. As the figures show, a $13 billion roughly increase went to fighting COVID, and approximately $2 billion of that dollars were obligated to contracts to small businesses. So again, small businesses, large businesses, all businesses were really on the forefront of helping us with this terrible pandemic situation. But we totally rely on you folks to come to a plate, and you have done so. And there are so many American heroes at this point, but small businesses are one of those heroes as well. So we continue to fight COVID. The fight is not over. There's going to be a lot more coming forward. Next slide, please. So as you can see from this chart, the 5 core areas in which the small business partner with HHS mostly are IT services, professional services, research and development, medical categories, equipment, healthcare services and pharmaceutical services, facilities and construction. And you see the dollars breaking down by the percentage and so on and so forth there. As you can see, we heavily rely on small businesses to partner with in various categories, but key partnerships are, again, the IT areas, the professional services areas, and the research and development areas. Next slide, please. So what we're going to kind of cover here is kind of the trends of subcontracting. HHS has steadily increased in the contracts portfolio with small businesses, but most importantly, we are increasing the dollars obligated on contracts to small businesses each year. In FY20, we obligated over $900 million on contracts to small businesses who had not done business with HHS in the past. That is an incredible number. That's almost $1 billion of new business just to small businesses at HHS. That's phenomenal. Phenomenal success story to everybody. You, the contracting community, the program offices, all of HHS, just a great story. I just want to explain further, though, that when we say obligated, what that really means in the parlance of contracting, if you will. Essentially, when we award a contract, we only put certain dollars for the current fiscal year on that contract. So this number really represents what was obligated on contract for the initial performance period for the business. This is not the whole value of the contract. This is only obligated of the contract. So if a partner, for instance, is awarded today a 5-year, $10 million contract, and let's just go amortize it over the 5 years and say $2 million each year. So you would have seen a $2 million obligation, but there's still another 4 years of obligations that's going to be happening. So this is a great story. So in this area, we have new partners that are 390 new partners, and this figure represents an average of $2.4 million obligated in the first year on each new contract to those new HHS partners. And just a quick math sort of thing, there's different ways to calculate, but a man year, if you will, a person year who works 2,000 hours, we kind of round up, but it's really 1,880 or 1,600 hours. You know, that comes into depending upon the mix. That can be roughly a loaded rate of $150,000. There can be so many people that you just employed, and we understand that in the small business sector here. So that's just kudos to you. HHS continues to climb in its subcontracting dollars as well as all categories. We are currently working on the FY20 actuals for subcontracting due to other delays resulting from the pandemic. The results will be delayed, and I think you can appreciate where we're coming from there. Next slide, please. Also kind of talked a high level area where some of the successes are, but let me give you some other really specifics. Good news is that collaboration between the OSDBU office, which is the small business office, Linda told you earlier what it all stands for: small disadvantaged business utilization. It's usually a mouthful, so usually we just say the OSDBU office. But there's collaboration between the OSDBU office, our program office, and the contracting officials. As I mentioned, Diane Frazier, great things that she's doing over there at NIH, and all the other OPTIVs and staff divs, has led to many successes in mission support through small business utilization. For example, through relationship building, the early acquisition planning, which is so critical. Acquisition planning is so critical. And me, as the senior procurement executive for the department, we're looking at making sure that acquisition planning is done on time, early enough, so we can have real input from industry. But the OSDBU small business specialists supporting CMS in particular, I want to highlight, enable them to partner with stakeholders at the Center for Clinical Standards and Quality. The program was set aside 99% of their procurements to small businesses. That's an incredible amount. I mean, you can't get much better than that. Anticipate approximately $1.5 billion in contracts over the next 5 years to small businesses in all socioeconomic categories. Phenomenal story. Kudos to them. Next slide, please. So, connecting with HHS. So how do you engage with us? Okay, next slide, please. So as you see here, I'm not going to read through a lot of this stuff, but you see the website there, HTTPS, so and so forth. You want to visit that website. It's absolutely the place, one of the places to go. Go there now, go there often, go there in the future. Next slide, please. From that website, though, let me show you what you can do. You can actually register for your small business, okay, in the small business customer experience. Okay, this is a really phenomenal website that has been put together by the OSDBU office that is a really user-friendly. They are always engaged. Linda and her team at the OSDBU office are always engaged in making the customer experience simple. And as I get older and long in tooth, as they say, that's what I need. I need simple things. I can't complicate my life with a lot of stuff. You guys are very busy. You shouldn't be we're trying to make your life easier, right? And that's what Linda and the entire OSDBU team are trying to do day in and day out, working really hard to do that. Next slide, please. There you can upload capability statements. You can find HHS forecasts and opportunities. We can search for vendors who might be great partners. Okay, and here is also where contracting workforce can conduct their market research to find and determine vendor capabilities for HHS requirements. I can't really emphasize enough how important it is to build systems where there's kind of a one-stop shop to go to. There's going to always be multiple shops to search around for, but we want this to kind of be at least your very first kind of go-to website. Not denigrating anything that other OPTIVs and staff divs are doing with their website, but this is a good place to go and get started and for that consolidated point here. So next slide, please. So also on the website, you're going to find the points of contact information, customer care line, customer care email line, information on the monthly vendor outreach sessions, which are being done, and you're able to schedule an appointment with the director. So additionally, you can connect through Access to Success, as Linda says, the A2S engagement platform for our larger outreach initiatives by visiting the HHS accesstosuccess.com website. On this platform, you can register OSDBU listening lab series, view previous recordings, and retrieve information on upcoming events. most importantly, I want you to be aware that there's always things being done in the OSDBU office. I mean, I keep on pushing. What are we doing? How are we doing? And I'm doing a lot of metrics. I always talk about metrics. What opportunities are we doing for you that are really resonating with you, and finding and tuning and bringing that to your forefront. So what's the next important thing? Well, mark your calendar in 2021, the HHS Small Business National Virtual Conference, June 29th through June 30th, where you will be able to participate in matchmaking and join us in our first virtual Small Business Awards ceremony, which, as everybody knows, everybody loves an award. And I think, I believe I will be participating in that. I'm not sure if they'll ask me back again, but I believe I will be participating. At the very least, I said, let's make sure that we really recognize the high performers and through HHS, and who have been small businesses combining with us in that area. So that's pretty much it. This is going to conclude my kind of dissertation here. As you can see, HHS has multiple avenues for connecting with the small business industry partners and those looking to do business with HHS. It has indeed been a pleasure talking to you this afternoon, and I look forward to talking to you all in the future. Look forward to seeing the good things from small businesses. It's really, really important to us for taking care of the health and well-being of the American citizens, and as I said before, citizens across the globe. So with that, I will pass it back over to you. Thank you, folks, very much.
That was a wealth of information. So I'm hoping that all of you in my virtual community out there are taking good notes and prepared to ask questions when time allots itself. Okay, so now let me move on. I would like to now introduce to you our moderator for today's A2S Listening Lab. Mr. Marcus Brownrigg is the program manager for Supreme Solutions, a commercial and government contractor based in Alexandria, Virginia. Mr. Brownrigg manages a contract design to partner historically Black colleges and universities with small businesses and equip them with resources to win contracts and grant opportunities with NIH and HHS. Welcome, Marcus.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Linda. Hi, everyone. My name is Marcus Brownrigg, as you can see. And we have a wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much, Mr. Dasher, for the wealth of information and resources you also provided to the online community. Supreme Solutions, Inc. is an 8A hub zone firm, so we are indeed a small business. We are headed by our president and CEO, Mr. Brett Jones, a true visionary as it relates to small business. And we have had the distinct honor and pleasure to work directly with the National Institutes of Health, amongst other federal agencies, as it relates to trying to educate and inform and provide useful information and help build infrastructure within historically Black colleges and universities so they may be better equipped to actively compete for federal resources. With that being said, I want to go ahead and do a brief introduction of our panel members today. I'm going to say everyone's name. If you would like, you can click on their link that announced today's event and get a bio for each one. And then each person is going to have an opportunity to do a presentation. And we're going to ask a few questions of them along the way, as well as we're going to be receiving some questions from you, our audience. So with that being said, we have Ms. Seneca Franklin, Sam Wu, Ms. Diane Frazier, and Ms. Annette Owens Scarborough. Seneca, would you go ahead and say hello to everyone?
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Marcus. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Seneca Franklin. I am Associate Director with the White House Initiative on Historically Black Colleges and Universities.
Wonderful. Next up, we have Mr. Samuel Wu. If you could please just briefly introduce yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So my name is Samuel Wu from the Office of Minority Health here at the Department of Health and Human Services. Currently serve as a liaison, the interim liaison to the White House Initiative on HBCU.
Wonderful. All right. Next, we have Ms. Diane Frazier. Could you briefly just say hello to folks out there, Ms. Frazier?
Yes, good afternoon to all. I'm Diane Frazier. I'm the director of the Office of Acquisition and Logistics Management, and also the head of the contracting activity for the NIH, and also a proud member of the team for past to excellence and innovation, which you will be hearing more about.
Thank you so much. And Miss Annette Owens Scarborough, will you please tell folks who you are?
Good afternoon again. I'm Annette Owens Scarborough, and I am the National Institutes of Health Small Business Program Manager and the Historically Black Colleges and University Coordinator. And we're glad to be here to be able to provide you with some insight as to what HHS's relationship is with the Historically Black Colleges and University and teaming with our small business partners.
Thank you so very much. Well, all right, as you said, you've met the members of our esteemed panel today. All of which will bring you a wealth of information and be able to provide you answers to some of your questions. But I'd like to go ahead and start first with Ms. Seneca Franklin from the White House Initiative on HBCUs. Seneca, please feel free to talk to the folks a little bit about maybe the things that you guys are doing at the White House Initiative on HBCUs. And I'd just like to start you off with this quick question. Of all the critical things that you're doing, what are the most critical changes that we must make in the future in order to be able to tackle things effectively as it relates to working with historically Black colleges and universities?
Thanks for that question, Marcus. President Biden has proposed investing in infrastructure at HBCUs to build the physical research facilities and labs that are needed to meet the research demands of today and the future. That is definitely a critical change that we'll need to make. The money that goes towards this will go on to address a problem that quite frankly, the pandemic has exposed clearly the need for digital infrastructure for the institutions, both for their faculty and the students, in order to effectively teach, access, and engage in a hybrid or online curriculum.
Thank you, Seneca. And oftentimes, and I know I too have heard certain misconceptions and misgivings, is most, well, not to say most people, but there are a lot of people out there who do not understand the important significance of historically Black colleges and universities, what they represent, and their value. But could you maybe talk about some of the common misconceptions that you've heard along the way? And then with that, how can we combat these misconceptions and communicate more effectively about the power and wealth that's contained within our historically Black colleges and universities, especially as it relates to supporting federal government?
Yeah, so I would say a common misconception would be that there are only a handful of HBCUs that can support the missions of various companies or organizations. There are currently 102 historically Black colleges and universities recognized by the U.S. Department of Education. Each of the institutions has its own unique skill set. So I would say, I implore you to think outside of the box when you're identifying potential partners to team with as you're pursuing contracts with the federal government.
All right, well, go ahead. Let me stop all the banter back and forth and go ahead and get into your more formalized presentation. I'm sure that everybody's going to appreciate the information you're able to bring.
Great, great. So as we get situated here and my slides are being brought forward, I wanted to just start by polling the audience to see how much they know about the initiative. So if we'll move to the next slide, it is entitled a quick question. So the question here is on your screen. Please feel free to chime in here. What is the mission of the initiative? So if you answer D, you are correct. All but B. So that really brings me to our next slide, and I'm gonna kind of delve deeper into that question. I always say, in order to know where you're headed, you have to know where you've been. So 40 years ago, President Carter established this federal program to overcome the effects of discriminatory treatment and to strengthen and expand the capacity of HBCUs to provide quality education. The program now, today, is known as the White House Initiative on HBCUs. Every president since Jimmy Carter has reestablished the initiative and its board of directors. To take it a step further, in order to understand the work of the initiative, you have to kind of know how we're organized. Not only are we charged with strengthening HBCU's ability to equitably participate in federal programs, but we also explore new ways to improve the relationship between the federal government, HBCUs, and the private sector. So that brings me to the next slide about the team that's doing the work. So this is our small but mighty career staff, and we'll be adding extra strength along the way when our senior leadership is appointed by President Biden. We are not a grant making office. We are not a contracting office. We do not offer scholarships. We are partnership brokers, but we don't endorse products or services. We strive to be change makers. We are outreach bandits. We engage heavily with the philanthropic, business, government, military, and education communities in a national dialogue about new HBCU programs and initiatives, which is a great segue to my next slide. Our work is primarily driven by our relationship with more than 30 federal agencies that make up our interagency working group. They are actually meeting right now as we speak. They meet every month, once a month at 1:30. And these individuals consist of a mix of political appointees and career employees, many of whom are, have been working with the initiative in some capacity for several decades. And if we'll go on to the next slide, this is a picture that depicts, I think this was last year, it may have been maybe 2 years ago, but when we get together pre-COVID, we often like to make sure that we document these folks, because everything that we do actually goes into the National Archives for permanent record. These individuals serve as the agency's resident HBCU point of contact. So I am so glad to be here today to talk about the initiative's collaboration with HHS, and specifically opportunities to provide HBCUs with developmental assistance to strengthen their contract competitiveness. So I'll highlight some of the previous activities in our next slide. Over the years, we have collaborated across the federal space to execute co-branded programs and projects specifically for HBCUs. We coordinated efforts to ensure HBCUs and the communities in which they serve were well integrated into the communication strategies for the Affordable Care Act. We collaborated with NIH in its efforts to increase the diversity of its workforce and to increase the enrollment of HBCU grads in graduate study biomedical research. We cooperated with the Future of Nursing Campaign for Action with the Office of Minority Health and the National Partnership for Action to End Health Disparities to further enhance HBCU's capacity to increase the pipeline of students entering the field of nursing. And the last thing I'll mention is that we joined forces with NIH on a HBCU Week Industry Day. That Industry Day engaged federal agencies, HBCU thought leaders, and HBCU thought leaders to explore best practices and tangible resources that would enable them to increase their institution's ability to compete for federal funding opportunities. With HHS and NIH as value-added thought leaders within our IWG, those individuals, Sam, who you met earlier, and Annette, they continue to serve diligently on the IWG and even co-chair or are members of 8 of our active cluster groups that work together to increase federal agency engagement. NIH, specifically Ms. Annette Owens Scarborough, is the co-chair for our federal agency, our federal contracting cluster, which recently expanded to encompass federal funding opportunities, all federal funding opportunities to include grants and cooperative agreements. So that brings me to my next slide that just talks a little bit about that cluster. We all know that federal contracting is a beast, right? I mean, the federal sector annually invests tens of billions of dollars in higher education grants, contracts, and cooperative agreements. That's why you're all here today, right? I see you. I see you virtually nodding your head. So again, our work is specific to HBCUs, and through the cluster, which focuses on 2 areas: policy, where they're developing, implementing, and promoting high leverage policies, practices, programs to cultivate a framework that encourages HBCU competitiveness in federal acquisitions. And secondly, around program planning. So they're developing and administering scalable, dynamic federal contracting workshops. The next slide really illustrates the cluster project, which I mentioned when I was talking to Marcus. So considering the lessons that we learned from the annual National HBCU Week, when we held our HBCU Industry Day, we had an epiphany. So we were sitting around and really doing a hot wash. And then we said, you know, why are we starting in the middle of this process? Let's go back to basics. So we know navigating the world of federal contracting is complex. So we asked our HBCU presidents to identify a staff member who has the credibility and professional aptitude to work across their entire institution to participate in a pilot. These members serve as HBCU delegates and are granted access to exclusive workshops, seminars, and briefings that hone in on this vital area. So that brings me to my final slide, so I can stop talking and take a sip of water. To my HHS colleagues, we really appreciate your enthusiasm and advocacy on behalf of the White House Initiative. We encourage all the agencies, businesses, corporations on the line today to consider how you might help build capacity and contribute to the building of that infrastructure. And in the meantime, I encourage you, implore you, to sign up for the initiative's listserv to receive up-to-date information on grants, contracts, internships, and other workshops from more than 30 federal agencies. With that, Marcus, I'll pass it back to you.
Well, I'd like to first thank you for your presentation. Thank you for that valuable added information that you were able to provide. And next, we'd like to move on to Captain Samuel Wu from the Office of Minority Health, where he serves as a public health advisor. And if you would, sir, go ahead and tell us a little bit about the Office of Minority Health. And I may have a question or two for you as well.
Our office was established in 1985 with a focus on to address the health and well-being of racial and ethnic minority populations. So we have been in existence for over 30 years now. And we work across the Department of Health and Human Services, to collaborate on many projects. And we also serve, by the way, our office, we also provide provide grant opportunities. That's some of the things we do. And we also do have some projects that are awarded as contracts. And we also run a resource center. So when we get to the slides, then you'll see I'll talk a bit more about our office. But that's just a very general, high-level overview of what our office does. Back to you, Marcus.
Okay, excellent. All right. Would love this for you to go into your presentation, but as you're heading into your presentation, I got a quick question for you, Samuel. What do you, or what does the Office of Minority Health see as the most interesting trend for 2020 going into 2021? I know that the dynamic and landscape has changed as it relates to the pandemic and all the other pressures that might impact your Office of Minority Health. So what do you see as some trends from 2020 that are going into 2021 that you are working on or that the office is trying to address? And more so as it relates to your engagement with HBCUs and even broader minority serving institutions.
Sure. So let me speak with a broad brush stroke. Thank you for that question. So for this, as we go into 2021, for those of you who have been following the White House website, there's a series of executive orders signed by President Biden. And if you notice, there's a lot of focus on health equity, racial justice. So that's part of work that our office will be focusing on. For example, one of the executive orders was to establish a COVID-19 health equity task force that's in response to the executive order 13995 on the equitable pandemic response. So that's, by the way, just of note, that's a task force that's chaired by Dr. Marcella Nunes-Smith, who you may have heard or seen her on TV. So this is a task force I happen to serve as the designated federal officer for. It's one of the hats that we're in the Office of Minority Health. So in fact, actually, right now as we speak, I'll be working fiercely, try to delegate some of the responsibility to my colleagues because this morning I just received the word I'm being activated, including with me wearing my uniform, to support the unaccompanied minors mission, that's near the border. So I'm trying to tie up loose ends so I can get ready to leave for that mission. But going back to Marcus' question, so this is the what we focus on, what we, meaning the entire federal government, is focusing on health equity.
Okay, Sam, thank you so much. That's wonderful. And also, I'd like to just commend you on your dedication through the public health service and being one of the first responders as it relates to our nation's health crisis. And so hats off to you, sir. One more quick question for you before you delve into your formal presentation, because I think people might be interested. And maybe you'll talk about it more during your presentation, but what is the best resource for people if they want to learn more about HHS and its Office of Minority Health? If they want to get a better understanding or a deeper dive and figure out what things they can do to engage with your office?
Go to visit our website, and then I also have leave my contact information on the slide as well. So that's the best way to learn more about our office. Just go to our website. It's a minority health at hhs.gov. And then so you can learn about the programs, initiatives, our priorities, and so on and so forth. Now, I should also note that, as some of you may know, that we have a new secretary who just joined a couple of weeks ago. And so, so we are waiting for, to hear more about what his visions are, as he leads this department moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, we got a polling question. Pardon me. What is National Minority Health Month? I guess we're going to give folks a chance to chime in on this one. And then, Sam, you can give them an answer. This came back with April. All right, Sam, let them know.
Great, thank you. So the mission of our office is to improve the health of racial and ethnic minority populations through the development of health policies and programs that will eliminate health disparities. And we do this through the 5 functions that guide our work. So let me just highlight a few. So one of the primary roles that our office has is serve as a catalyst or a convener of stakeholders. That's a green. That's in the green pie piece. We collaborate within and outside of the federal government, and we serve as a key resource for our stakeholders. And also, we currently serve as the HHS liaison for the White House to the White House initiative on HBCU, and that is a role that we have been serving for a number of years, at least since I joined this office in 2012. And also, one of our roles is to promote policies and programs and practices for adoption. Our budget enables us to offer some small limited time program. That's what you see in the gray area, gray pie piece, to test on new policies, programs, or practices in the communities we serve. And if when these policies, programs, or practices are successful, we find homes for them, with our partners, so they can be sustained. Next slide, please. Oh, actually, I just realized that the color of the pie on your screen is a little different than mine, so my apologies. I just realized that. So this slide just show you the population. The populations are focused by our office. This is in the statute in Section 1707 of the Public Health Service Act. So specify that this office shall focus on the racial and ethnic minority populations, and it is defined as the Black or African American, Asian American Indians, Alaska Natives, Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islander, and Hispanic Latino population. So in our role as a convener and promoter of activities and information about minority health, we work with partners throughout the department. We also have 7 additional partner organizations or offices within HHS. So including 6 offices of minority health, and the National Institute on Minority Health and Health Disparities at the National Institutes of Health. So we hold meetings with each of these the other offices of minority health, and we look for opportunities for synergy, and that are identified through these meetings. And of course, we have partners and stakeholders across the federal government and outside of the federal government as well, at the national, state, and the community level. Just a few things. Part of the things that support the work that we do is we have the advisory committee on minority health. They provide guidance, issues that should be addressed. There's an independent advisory body that advises the director of our office on those issues that identify how our office could address those gaps that they see. Internally, we have a Health Disparities Council, which is comprised of senior level officials across the department. And then we have another group. It's called the Interdepartmental Health Equity Collaborative. And this is comprised of many partners across the federal agencies. And this is a space where we share information, bring forth ideas, and seek ways to collaborate or leverage our resources, in the spirit of serving those racial and ethnic minority communities. Okay, so this slide is on the HBCU participation in our programs. Just to give you some examples, some of the grants that we fund, and the recipients are the HBCU, where the recipients are HBCU. So the first one is the National Infrastructure for Mitigating the Impact of COVID-19 initiative. This program seeks to develop and coordinate a strategic and structured national network of stakeholders, national, state, territorial, tribal, and local public health and community-based organizations that will mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on racial and ethnic minority, rural, and socially vulnerable populations. So this is a 3-year cooperative agreement between our office and the Morehouse School of Medicine. And it was awarded last year in May or June. I cannot remember the exact the date. It just eluded my mind, so my apologies. So that's just one example. And the other one is the state tribal territorial partnership initiative to document the sustained disparity reducing interventions. This initiative supports projects to demonstrate if modifications to existing evidence-informed interventions for selected health issues will significantly improve health outcomes for racial and ethnic minority and disadvantaged populations. This project was awarded last September. Again, Morehouse School of Medicine is one of the grant recipients among the 12 recipients. And last one, this program ended in 2020, was a 3-year program, but I just mentioned that, the National Works Diversity Pipeline Program is supported the project that developed innovative strategies to identify promising students in their first year of high school and provide them with a foundation to pursue successful careers in health professions. Again, Howard University in DC was one of the grant recipients. So this collectively just want to give you examples of of some of the recipients, HBCU recipients of our grant program. So now we have this new initiative. It is a $250 million initiative. This was announced 2 weeks ago at the National League of Cities Conference by Vice President Harris. This is a grant for localities to partner with community organizations on health literacy. So this new initiative is expected to fund approximately 30 projects in urban communities and about 40 plus 43-ish projects in rural communities. By the way, cities, counties, parishes, or other similar subdivisions may apply for this funding. So our office expects to fund in the 30 projects, 30 projects in urban communities and 40 projects in rural communities for 2 years. So the goal of these projects is to provide racial and ethnic minority and underserved communities with the information they need to stay safe and to get vaccinated. And I also want to highlight that potential grantees are encouraged to partner with minority serving institutions, including HBCUs, for the evaluation component of the project. So please visit the website that you see on your slide for more information. Okay. So the Resource Center, so I want to share this one. This is the Office Minority Health Resource Center. This is our nation's largest repository of information on the health of a minority population in the U.S. and in the territories. So some of the services that are available to you, we can provide a search, on our online library catalog for minority health information. You can view the monthly list of new books and articles added to the collection, and you can request a free customized funding match for your organizations, either nonprofit or academic institutions or faith-based organizations. So the Resource Center can also search for scholarships and fellowships that fit your background and needs. And next slide, please. Okay. So I want to do a slide about the National Minority Health Month. This year, the theme is focusing on disproportionate impact the COVID-19 pandemic is having on the racial and ethnic minority communities, and underscore the need for these vulnerable communities to get vaccinated as more vaccines become available. So, COVID-19 vaccination is an important tool to help us get back to normal and to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in order to bring this pandemic to an end. So this year's theme is vaccine ready. And the focus would be to empower communities to get the facts about COVID-19 vaccines, share accurate vaccine information, and participate in clinical trials, get vaccinated when the time comes, and practice on COVID-19 safety measures. Great. So this is the contact information. Feel free to reach out to us with your questions. And with that, I will turn it back to Marcus.
Thank you, Sam. That was a wonderful presentation, and you provided some very valuable resources. I hope folks followed along, and if not, they may be able to reach out on some of these sites and their social media later. But thanks once again. Well, next up, we have our esteemed panelist, Ms. Diane Frazier from the National Institutes of Health. Ms. Frazier is in the Office of Acquisitions and Logistics Management, and she's the head of contracting activity at the National Institutes of Health. And I've had the honor and the pleasure to work with her for the past couple of years as she has promoted engagement of small businesses and HBCUs, and just, you know, a mentor and a stalwart as it relates to the small business community. So Ms. Frazier, you'll go ahead and say hello again to everyone. I got a question or two I'm just going to throw your way, and then get into your presentation if you don't mind. Let me ask you just out of curiosity though, what do you feel has been the biggest challenge in the small business community as it relates to working with minority serving institutions?
I think one, becoming familiar with some of the capabilities of some of the HBCUs. And I found that in our, you could call it a mentor protege program, but partnership certainly between the HBCUs and the industry. I think it's been a learning experience on both parts, and also an opportunity for some industry to become more familiar with the scientific and medical capabilities of our HBCUs.
Excellent. And then I just got one more question for you before we get started into your formal presentation. But as you being a champion for these types of initiatives, what made you decide to tackle this subject? I mean, how did it come about to really get you into the process, seeing if there was compatibility and availability for historically Black colleges and universities to contract or subcontract with federal agencies?
Marcus, that is a great question. And I will be focusing on that during my presentation, but basically it comes down to this. The NIH awards billions of dollars for research and development and for non-research and development contracts. We have the responsibility of managing a sizable government agency with all the needs that you can expect in an agency of our size. So those items that are critical and tied very closely to the NIH mission, the research and development, and those items that are tied to just in focusing on any organization's infrastructure, from construction to IT to architecture services, furniture services, maintenance. And when we look at our HBCUs, we have the talent to fulfill many aspects of the needs of the NIH. But then when I look at the NIH portfolio, I don't see the representation there of HBCUs. And that's why we charted this course to see what we could do as an agency to provide some support and to ask the question, why aren't we seeing more participation from HBCUs in our acquisition portfolio?
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for charting this course. Would you be so kind as, I guess, to start Ms. Frazier's presentation so we can go ahead and ask our next polling question, and then give Ms. Frazier an opportunity to expound more about the wonderful things that are happening at the National Institutes of Health.
So basically what I want to cover today is talk about our Path to Excellence and Innovation program, our 2.0 initiative, and provide some background on the NIH. So next slide. So the NIH is the world's foremost center for biomedical and behavioral scientific research. It's the foundation that supports the US efforts to fight disease, and not only in the US, but worldwide. Our mission is to discover knowledge that will lead to better health for everyone. You'll note that our budget is $43 billion. I just want to say, when I started some years ago at the NIH, our budget was not over $10 billion. So as you can see, the immense growth in just a period of a few years where our budget has grown, but also the impact of our mission has been felt throughout the world. And certainly you're witnessing that with COVID. So this is a pictorial of all of the NIH institutes, the 27 institutes and centers. We have 10 separate offices of acquisitions that support the ICs with negotiated contracting, simplified acquisitions, GSA schedules, and micro purchases. So you are fortunate to be among the first to see the FY 2020 NIH solar chart. And what this chart shows is not only the various offices of acquisition, 10, as I mentioned earlier, but also their customers and their obligations for the fiscal year. And as you'll note, in the center of this chart, you'll see me, Diane Frazier, with a number there that represents the total obligations for the NIH in FY 2020, which was approximately $7.6 billion. A sizable investment in the health of our country and the running of the NIH. Please note that approximately 1.3 billion was focused on COVID activity. And as I said, currently less than 1% of NIH's contract awards are obligated to HBCUs. And as I said to Marcus, this fact was the inspiration for the path to excellence and innovation. So for more than 150 years, historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs, have served this country as engines of economic growth, cultural diversity, and academic achievement. Their value to the federal government is a reflection of their contributions to entities such as the Department of Health and Human Services, and specifically to the NIH. HBCUs and NIH share a long history of successful advancements in healthcare. NIH was founded in 1887, just 1 year after the first HBCU, incidentally. The NIH is the world's largest public funder of biomedical research. And we invest more than $43 billion a year to improve human life and reduce sickness and disability. The agency is devoted to exploring every possible avenue to helping people live their longest, healthiest lives. HBCUs share a similar tradition of contributing to the nation's public health, as well as diversifying the healthcare profession. The Morehouse School of Medicine, founded in 1975, is recognized as being among the nation's leading educators of primary care physicians. Clark Atlanta University is home to the largest, most comprehensive academic prostate cancer research enterprise in the United States. And according to a report from the National Science Foundation, Howard University is the top generator of African-American undergraduates earning science and engineering PhDs. Hampton University is home to the world's only freestanding proton beam cancer treatment center. These and other venerable HBCU institutions have made a significant impact on advancing public health. HBCUs advance the mission of both NIH directly and indirectly. From graduating overwhelming percentages of African Americans into medical practice to conducting breakthrough research in everything from cancer to genomes, HBCU's ongoing contribution to American public health is undeniable. Despite these contributions, there are two facts that require attention. One, Many HBCUs are struggling to develop sustainable revenue streams. And two, HBCUs are not getting the opportunities to collaborate with the NIH to the degree that they should, nor is the NIH or the nation experiencing the full benefit of what HBCUs can offer to continue to advance public health. Many HBCUs aren't familiar with the federal acquisition process, and many don't have the much needed infrastructure to navigate through the process. I keep saying this, but this is something that needs to be said and needs to be heard and needs to be understood. As stated earlier, the NIH's $7.6 billion in contract obligations, less than 1% is with HBCUs. Why the PEI initiative was created. NIH created the program specifically focused on cultivating its relationships with HBCUs. It's called the Path to Excellence and Innovation Initiative. The program also fulfills the requirements of the Presidential Executive Order 13779, the White House initiative to promote innovation and excellence at HBCUs. If you are interested in learning more about the PEI initiative, I recommend that you take a few minutes to read our white paper, Paving the Path to Excellence and Innovation for Historically Black Colleges and Universities, as well as the program's fact sheet. Both are available on our website. The website is, the address is at the top of this slide. So where we are now. So we had a pilot phase, which just recently ended. There were 6 HBCUs and each paired with a minimum of 1 business partner to pursue NIH funding opportunities. The pilot schools were Hampton University, Jackson State University, Morehouse College of Medicine, Meharry Medical School, the University of the Virgin Islands, and Howard University. And in the time of our pilot, we witnessed many successes. And while not always resulting in contract awards, instead, grants or cooperative agreements, the HBCU forums, networking opportunities with industry, and NIH program officials have provided opportunities for the HBCUs. On March 8th, we began reviewing applications for the next cohort, which we are calling PEI 2.0. Participants will be announced in April. The PEI initiative has some exciting new features, including a unique database that will serve as the backbone of the PEI's initiative's training program. It will allow HBCUs and their respective business partners to access NIH contract and grant opportunities consolidated within a straightforward dashboard. The PEI database has been approved by OMB. NIH is developing a PEI Technical Assistance Center, or TAC. This will be a comprehensive ecosystem providing professional guidance with all aspects of the acquisition lifecycle that will assist HBCUs in competing for and managing acquisition opportunities with the NIH. And the NIH has developed a special curriculum, the Fundamentals of Contracting. This virtual training is a 20-hour course that addresses such topics as acquisition roles and responsibilities, integrated projects teams, acquisition plan elements, categories of requirements, solicitation, terms and conditions, and pre-award inquiries, among an array of other subjects critical to mastering the ability to successfully navigate the acquisition cycle. So next steps. The next cohort, PEI 2.0, will be a 18-month program. However, there are other ways for HBCUs to engage and interact with NIH. PEI weekly funding opportunities. Every week, the PEI initiative distributes an email containing funding opportunities. There's a PDF document that contains links for COVID-19 related opportunities. And the email also includes an Excel spreadsheet of contracting opportunities for the month, current and upcoming opportunities from betasam.gov and the HHS/NIH procurement forecast, includes events on the Small Business Program Office calendar. To receive the weekly funding opportunities, you can join the listserv by sending an email to pei@nih.gov. On April 24th, NIH will host the 2021 Virtual HBCU Industry Day from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The purpose of the event is to introduce HBCUs to the NEI PEI TAC and educate them on the importance of utilizing this valuable resource to strengthen their infrastructure so they can become more responsive and competitive in pursuing contract awards. The 2021 Industry Day also will provide the 10 offices of acquisition to share what they can do or already are doing to increase contract awards to HBCUs. And then in September, we will be supporting the White House initiative on HBCUs by participating in the National HBCU Week Conference. That event will include an industry day with opportunities for HBCUs to participate in matchmaking with procurement officials. And so in closing, I just want to paraphrase those great philosophers from Motown, Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell. Ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough to keep us from supporting HBCUs. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent, excellent. And I know our audience thanks you as well. We're going to thank you so much for that wonderful presentation and the value-added resources you described, and your engagement and your leadership in championing the cause within the National Institutes of Health to engage historically Black colleges and universities to help them build the infrastructure and get them to prepare to compete effectively in the government contracting realm. So thank you so much, Ms. Frazier. I want to go ahead and end with a polling question. You may have alluded to it in your presentation, but how many institutes and centers comprise NIH? Let's see if people can get this one.
That's great. 27 institutes and
Yes.
centers. Congratulations.
Well, that means they were actually, people were paying attention when you were speaking. That's what that means. Yeah, good job. All right. Well, next up, we're going to have Miss Annette, and thank you again. We're going to have Miss Annette Owens Scarborough come in and talk about her role and what she's done as a small business program office program manager at the National Institutes of Health, in her working with Ms. Frazier and their combined leadership. I know me personally, I work with Ms. Owens Scarborough on a day-to-day basis as a team member through our 8A Hub Zone firm that I work for, Supreme Solutions, in supporting NIH's engagement with HBCUs and trying to help build infrastructure with HBCUs so they'll be better equipped to compete in a competitive fashion on an even playing field as it relates to contracting. So with that being said, Ms. Scarborough, would you like to say hello to everyone again?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Afternoon. And this is going so well. I got a couple of questions for you before we get into your formal presentation, though, just to kind of see, you know, as you worked with these schools and programs for quite a while, what do you think we can do to advance the ability for small businesses to partner with HBCUs?
I think Ms. Frazier indicated that it's building the relationships, and that's exactly what this presentation is alluded to, is building relationships with NIH and HHS. That means is that we need both to understand each other's mission and their goals. And that's where infrastructure is so important in the HBCUs, and the understanding of the roles and responsibilities of both aspects.
Wonderful. And then I'm going to ask you a question that I asked Seneca earlier, but I figured that she had to give the White House politically correct answer and not single out anybody. But I know that over the past few years, you've worked with several schools and some very diligent efforts to get them contract ready. And just based upon what you've seen, what schools do you think are currently making some of the greatest advancements as it relates to being prepared, being contract ready, and trying to take this thing to the next level, just based upon your experience?
Based upon my last 7 years working with the HBCUs, and I agree with Seneca, we have to be politically correct. But however, working with the pilot schools that we had at NIH and schools that have reached out to us, they're all ready, eager and ready, but they all, in some aspects, have some form of infrastructure they have to work with. Now, if I have to, based on the 6 schools that I work with in the pilot program, I would say UVI, Howard, Hampton, Jackson State, Morehouse, and I think that's all of my pilot schools. But I do applaud the fact that everybody has made efforts. Hampton, as Ms. Frazier pointed out, has gotten grants or a corporate agreement with our National Cancer Institute. Morehouse School of Medicine has received a memorandum of understanding with HHS last year, COVID related, as well as Morehouse School of Medicine received a contract with NIH last year. Also, we have Jackson State, who's had been a part of our heart study, the National Institute of Heart and Allergy Infection, National Institute of Heart. And so Jackson State and Tougaloo have been working with that very diligently with that institute. And we have Meharry, who has not recently received a contract with NIH, but they have over 20 years of animal husbandry. And we do have a contract, a GWAC at NIH that could fit very closely with their capabilities. And the University of Virgin Islands, what can I say about them? They have diligently built their infrastructure. They are working on going after SBIR, STTR contracts, as well as contracts at the NIH. So I can say that from the 6 pilot schools that work with us, they all show some form of improvement and energy in trying to improve their relationships with small business partners and the NIH.
All right, well, thank you so much for answering those questions for us. I think now would be a great time for you to go ahead and, if you'd like, to get into the actual formal presentation that you have prepared for us today. And then we're going to move into maybe some questions and answers. And we'd love to hear more from you and about the wonderful things that you're doing to the Small Business Program Office.
Okay, I just want to say, as time permits, I know that we're running over a little bit, and I consider, as Ms. Frazier is giving these accolades to these songs, I wanted to say I guess I'm the cleanup woman at the end, because you've all heard from the subject matter experts. You've heard from Seneca, you've heard from absolutely from David Dasher, you've heard from Captain Wu, and Captain Wu, I give Godspeed and thank you for being such a diligent and supportive person in minority health at the department level. And also, and needless to say, my own director, Ms. Diane J. Frazier, for her support and background in this initiative that I am pursuing at the National Institutes of Health. And I want to say to the vendors and the schools that are online, most of my slides are informational purposes for you, so I may or may not be able to go over all of them in detail. Next slide, please. You know, this is just some history. As Ms. Frazier pointed out, for over 150 years, HBCUs have served this country in so many ways: economic growth, cultural diversity, and academic achievement. Next slide. As also has been pointed out, we've been given our current direction from Executive Order 13779. And one of excuse me, one of the aspects of that executive order that was signed by our former president was for us to agencies to establish how the agency intends to increase the capacity of HBCUs to compete effectively for grants, contracts, and corporate agreement. And the Department of Health and Human Services has every aspect of those type of activities. Next slide. As Seneca pointed out to you, we are awaiting the new executive order from from President Biden and Vice President Harris. And so as we receive new guidance and directions for the HBCUs, we will be sharing that on our NIH website. Next slide. I was asked to do a collaboration of HBCUs and between HHS and the NIH. And I believe Seneca, Captain Wu, Ms. Frazier have already gone through that through extension. So what I'm going to do is just move through, and I think we've already talked about that $150 million annually from the Department of Health and Human Services on an annual basis. Thank you. Next slide. Captain, we showed you all of our operating divisions under HHS that work very diligently with him and HHS to build this relationship between the White House Initiative and the interagency sessions that we have. And these are some of my brothers and sisters in crime, as you may say, at HHS that work to help build that relationship. I know for a fact that ASPR has had what they call a broad agency announcement, and I talked to the chief contracting officer there, and they're working on reestablishing that BAA at this time. Thank you. Next slide. This Ms. Frazier's polling question just answered this for you, so we can move on to the next slide. Now, I wanted you to have a snapshot of HHS and HBCUs. Of all of the operating divisions under HHS, here are the agencies that have dollars obligated to HBCUs. And I'm proud to say, even though Food and Drug Administration is working very hard to work on their dollars obligations, the National Institute, as you can see, has the largest number of dollars going and has been obligated to HBCUs. And as you can see, this $9.2 million that is going into the HBCU bucket. Thank you. Next slide. These next couple of slides are just a breakdown of my other cohorts that are under the HBCU programs at NIH, be it grants, corporate agreements, or contracts. As you can see, we have SAMHSA involved here. We have SAMHSA dealing with excellence in behavioral health sciences. We have the suicide prevention program, minority serving institutions, partners in the MSI CBI community-based program. Next slide. And so on. These are other institutions, HBCU advocates that are being held at the HHS level. And certainly there is the NIH PEI program that we have there. And we have the NIH Research Center and Minority Institutions and Development at one of our other operating divisions. Next slide. HRSA has a great relationship with HBCUs that deals with development training programs and other activities. CDC, Undergraduate Public Health Scholars Program, as well as their minority health relationships. Next slide. And now I want to pretty much show you the small business goaling for all of HHS. I know David had given you a broader look at what HHS does as far as goaling in relationship with small businesses, but I want to give you a breakdown of each one of the operating divisions under HHS, as well as NIH's goaling for FY20. Next slide. You may not be able to see this, but this is online. This is a breakdown of what was achieved in each one of the operating divisions under HHS for FY20. And as you can see, it gives you, for instance, IHS, NIH, ASPR, and others. And it tells you what our goals were achieved in each one of the socioeconomic areas. And I can say, next slide, please. For the NIH, overall, HHS did very well. They met their over small business goal, and we all, next slide, met all of our socioeconomic goals except for Hub Zone and Service Disabled Vet. And each one of the operating divisions, there were a couple that did meet their Hub Zone and Service Disabled Vets. I can speak for the NIH. We had a goal of 29% that was assigned to us by the OSDBU's office, and we met our small business goal at 32%. And as you can see, we met all of our socioeconomic goals except for our Hub Zone and Service Disabled Vet. And we were very close in our Service Disabled Vet. There's a 3% goal. We were at 2%. And so we are working to improve that as well as our Hub Zone goal. And as a matter of fact, NIH has its own Hub Zone consortium that is working very closely with us in the Small Business Program Office to try to determine how we can build relationships and a better relationship with our acquisition officials at the NIH. Next slide, please. And this is another broader picture. As David pointed out, the Hub Zone goal assigned to HHS for FY21 is 33.2%. And all of the other socioeconomic categories are listed there. And I can say for FY20, we met all of our subcontracting goals, and we have a 29.7%, 0.7% for FY21. And I have no doubt that the NIH will achieve and meet their prime and subcontracting goals, as well as I think HHS is on the road to being successful for 21 as well. But we need you to note that a lot of the dollars that are achieved in all of these particular areas have some covert money in it. And that's the only concerns that we may have in maintaining our goal levels. Next slide, please. And I wanted to share with you, these are the top 10 small business vendors at the NIH for FY20. And I'm quite sure you're not small business vendors. And if you're not on there, we're looking forward to you being a part of that listing for FY21. Next slide, please. I also wanted to show you the top 10 2020 universities that have funding at the NIH. And yes, they are all universities that we're familiar with. And notably there is not an HBCU on that listing. And we're hoping that changes as well. Next slide. Yes, this is the top 10 or the 2020 top HBCUs that have dollars at the NIH. And Tougaloo, as I said, has a contract with our Heart Department Institute for the heart study following Jackson State, who also has a contract in that area. Morehouse School of Medicine has that contract, and Howard University had a small contract with NIH during FY20. Thank you. And also I wanted you to know, if there are any HBCUs or that want to team with contractors, there's a great program that I'm quite sure that everyone has heard of, or if you haven't heard of it, here's the link to it. And that's the Small Business Innovative Research / Small Business Technology Transfer program. And what that is that it is a quasi-grant program. However, you have to have a small business working with these HBCUs. And here is a listing or the bubbles that shows you the differences and the nuances needed to participate in that program. And if you have any questions, we have the link for that as well. And we work very closely with the SBIR, SCTR program with our SBA, with our HBCU and small business programs. Thank you. Next slide. And now the path to innovation, excellence in innovation. And I'm just, Ms. Frazier went into great details with this, but I just want to make sure that you have for your own information and reference some different information that is pertinent, that is very important, and it may answer even more questions that you may have about our program. Next slide. We talk about the program, our goals. What is the goal of this program? It's to identify HBCUs and underrepresented to participate in our program, develop a win strategy for them, encourage public sector, private sector, and community collaborations to improve the overall capacity of HBCU. Seek funding. That is very important. Increase the number of PEI, HBCU, and business partners participation. Next slide. Next steps, Ms. Frazier talked about our next steps. Here are additional information that may help you. We got our TAC program. We have the White House conference coming up in September. We have the White House CAP training, another one. We launched, meaning the NIH launched the first CAP training that was held last month. And we're also going to be hosting another CAP training in 2021, which deals with partnering, teaming, and subcontracting, and giving you some pointers on how to do that. And more importantly, Ms. Frazier pointed out our PEI 2.0 database that's going to be launched. That's going to be our ultimate goal. It's going to be the government go-to database. We're in phase 3. We're hoping to get to phase 5. And when we get to phase 5, it will be open up for all federal agencies to participate, as well as HBCUs. But for right now, in phase 3, it is restricted to HBCUs that will be accepted into our next 2.0 cohort, and the small businesses. Is currently under review by a committee at NIH to make this recommendation to our office. Our curriculum training seminars and webinars are coming up at this time. Next slide. And finally, as Ms. Frazier pointed out also, weekly we sent out a funding opportunities, which include opportunities as well, contract opportunities and grant opportunities. And we currently put it out on the White House as well as internally to our NIH database. If you have questions or you would like to be included to our database to receive this information, please come to our PEI database and let us know. Next slide. And lastly, we have a support team that's from HHS with Linda and with the OSBU team. As David pointed out, they are outstanding. And yes, we have 4 small business specialists from the OSBU office that are assigned to NIH because of the volume of activity, as Ms. Frazier pointed out, and the number of dollars that we have there. We have Ms. Anita Allen, Wayne Berry, Natasha Boyce, and John Ferguson. And I want to point out, as you can see, they not only support the National Institutes of Health, but Anita also covers CMS, Wayne covers HRSA, and Natasha, she covers the National Cancer Institute, and John Ferguson covers not only NIH, but he covers IHS, and I understand he also has another institute that's been assigned to him. And you can find all this information on the OSBU webpage. They are a great team. Last page, please. And finally, this is the HHS, the NIH, I'm sorry, because I am doing HHS, the NIH support team in our office. You have Octavia Copeland, who is our administrative assistant, Keandra Watts, she's a program analyst, Courtney Cotter, she supports us, and she also supports the Blanket Purchase Agreement Program. And again, we have a listing of our small business team from HHS. And as I said, guys, that's the last slide. I want to thank all of the subject matter experts that helped us to put this together today. Also providing the knowledge base in each specialized area. I thank Ms. Diane Frazier again for the support from her office and her surrounding acquisition teams that support us in this mission. And so, Marcus, that is it for me.
Thank you so very much for the wealth of information you provided and giving everyone an overview of the Small Business Program Office, as well as the PEI program and NIH's engagement with HBCUs as it relates to contracting, grants, and cooperative agreements. We truly applaud this. I just have a few questions that have come in. We're going to do a few Q&As while we have time, and I'm going to ask them directly to the participants in the panel that I think might be best equipped and enabled to answer the question. My first one goes to Sam Wu. We had a question come in that basically states, do you need to be a minority to win a grant for a solution to help in the Minority Health Grant Program?
Sure, the answer is no. Our grants are open to just about all entities, except for individual to individual or for-profit businesses.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sam. All right, our next question comes in, and it was for Ms. Diane Frazier. And the question is, has the agency received or anticipate funding for oversight as a result of COVID? If so, will some of those oversight funds be allocated to contract awards, specifically small 8A and women business-owned contractors?
Actually, we are working now on COVID oversight, and we are using a small business to conduct that review. And I believe it is an 8A as well.
Thank you. Our next question, we're going to go over to Mrs. Owens Scarborough. And this question is, can small businesses use the PEI website as a resource?
Depending upon what information you want, we do have a separate, we have a total small business website that has all kinds of detailed information about the small business program, as well as our PEI program.
Excellent, excellent. All right, I think there's another question coming for you or Ms. Frazier. You might want to take it. We mentioned in your presentation, but which days is the HBCU Industry Day taking place this year?
HBCU Industry Day is on April 21st.
Excellent, and it will be virtual, correct?
Yes, it will.
Excellent, all right. This question might be for Ms. Frazier or herself, but I think Ms. Frazier alluded to it in her presentation as well and spoke on it. But we did have someone put into the question chat. How can local minority small businesses partner with HBCUs and the NIH?
So that's a very good question, and I'll start, and Annette will finish, because we have been working with small businesses. We have reached out to several of them to for them to express their interests in working with the HBCUs. And in fact, in our PEI 2.0, we, in addition to requesting submissions from the HBCUs, we also requested it from industry, if they would also be interested, again, in partnering with the HBCUs. Now, that time has passed for the submission of proposals. However, there's always an opportunity for small businesses, if they are interested, to work with Ms. Owens Scarborough and her staff with the HBCUs. Annette, do you want to add to that?
Yes, the PEI program is an overall curriculum training activity with seminars and activities. However, it does not preclude small businesses and HBCUs from still pursuing opportunities at the NIH. Whenever there are broad agency announcements, RFIs, acquisitions, just like with, we have a current major requirement, the CISP 4 solicitation that will be released, if not in a few days, a couple of weeks. Small businesses can team with HBCUs and pursue and respond to that solicitation. We have other GWACs that are at the NIH that are released, and all kind of other acquisitions, being 8A, Hub Zone, Service Disabled Vets, or unrestricted requirements. HBCUs can be used with small and large businesses to pursue opportunities at the NIH via primes or annual subcontractors or teaming partners.
And I have one more question here. This may be, I'm going to read it the way it's been phrased. It might be a little confusing, but I think I know where they're going with this. It's back to NIH. So the question is, you have not mentioned nonprofits in any of this. Is that simply a different category for NIH/HBCU fundings? So I'm not sure if Ms. Frazier or Ms. Owens Scarborough would like to speak to that first, but I'll repeat the question. You have not mentioned nonprofits in any of this. Is that simply a different category for NIH/HBCU funding?
No, all are welcome. We didn't mention it. Perhaps that's our oversight, but all are welcome to participate.
Thank you so very much. That's all the questions that we have loaded right now that I think we're going to be able to get to in this segment. I'd like to thank the esteemed panel members for their wonderful contributions and the wealth of knowledge that they provided over this short span that we've been together. I think this is very valuable information, and people, as always, learn more, learn what it is you can do, how you can participate, and how you also can help further the cause of small businesses, as well as the engagement of small businesses with our historically Black colleges and universities. Ms. Frazier, I thank you so much for your vision and leadership. Ms. Owens Scarborough, I thank you so much for your vision, leadership, and day-to-day work on this topic and these programs. Samu, as I said, diligence to you, sir, as we ask for blessings and traveling mercies for you as you go about to serve the mission of the Public Health Service. And Ms. Seneca Franklin, as always, your valuable leadership in being a catalyst, as you said, an outreach organization, pulling all the federal agencies together to share some of this information and try to get everyone on a similar page as it relates to what efforts can be done or accomplished by the federal government to help and engage with HBCUs. You've all been wonderful, and this has been a wonderful opportunity for me to be able to speak with you today on behalf of Supreme Solutions Incorporated. We are honored to be a part of this glorious program and continue this work. With that being said, I'd like to turn everything over down to Ms. Barbara Bigelow. She has a few remarks that she'd like to make, I believe, about upcoming events and things that will be happening with Access to Success and these listening labs that the Department of Health and Human Services Office of Small Disadvantaged Business and Utilization has been so gracious to sponsor. Thank you all. My name is Marcus Brown Reagan. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you, Marcus, for the outstanding job in moderating today in today's listening lab. Such a wonderful partnership that we have from our small businesses. We also, again, want to ditto to what Marcus stated and thanking all of our presenters, our David Dasher, who's truly have not only supported us on today, but his continued support overall to the National Outreach Program and all of its initiatives. Again, I just want to say thank you to Seneca Franklin, also Captain Wu, for all of the information shared, as well as Diane Frazier, head of contracting activity for NIH, and her awesome team, Annette, Owens, Scarborough, for their just awesome job on the lineup today, as far as the agenda, as well as the wealth of information that has came forth in support of our outreach here today, as well as small businesses and HBCUs. I will be remiss if I did not say thank you, especially to all of the small businesses and HBCUs that are on with us today. We truly know that you are at the heart of our economy, and we hope that what was shared today has been an added value. I thank you to Strategic Management, our outreach contractor, for their support in making this event successful, and the great leadership of Linda Waters, who is the Director for Administration and Programs in the National Outreach for HHS. And just a reminder, we would like for all of you all that are on with us today to complete our survey. Upon the completion of the survey, you will receive those presentations that was shown today. And again, I want to just remind you of the 2021 Access to Success Small Business National Virtual Conference, Strengthening Small Businesses from Access to Opportunity, that will take place on June 29th and 30th. We have a great agenda lineup for both days, several speakers and panelists, matchmaking, and our first virtual small business award ceremony. Remember, registration will open on May the 29th. You can stay connected and engaged with all of our outreach events and initiatives by following us on social media and visiting our Access to Success website. That's at www.hhsaccesstosuccess.com. And in closing, if you are a part of the federal acquisition workforce, you will receive 1.5 continuous learning points for your participation in today's listening lab. Again, thank you. This concludes our virtual listening.